Welcome to the P's and Q's podcast by PerfectQuote. For each episode, we're going to share a pint and ask some questions to learn more about the current state of the employee benefits broker market and the future of insurance technology. Join me, Kevin Dawson, as we hear from industry leaders and insurance executives in the PerfectQuote team for great drinks and conversations. Well, welcome to the P's and Q's podcast by PerfectQuote. I'm your host, Kevin Dawson, and today I am joined by Daryl Hemeon, Director of Customer Solutions for Noyo. And we've got some exciting conversations today. If you're wondering what in the world is Noyo, well, you're not alone. Daryl, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Kevin. It's good to be here.
Well, Daryl, since I obviously don't know you that well, obviously, real quickly, so as we love to do is go into some rapid fire questions to get to know our guests a little bit better. So first question, what was your first paid job?
My first paid job. I was 15. I started working young because I wanted to make money, like every teenager. I wanted to save to buy a car with my twin brother. I worked at an Olympia sports store. I don't even know if that chain is still around or how even big they got so this would have been in the 80s. And my specialty was selling sneakers. So this was like right when like Nike Air was starting to take off, but pre-Jordans.
Oh, wow.
For what that's worth.
The pre-Jordan era,
pre-Jordan era. Yeah, I'm dating myself horribly, but I made very little money doing that. I remember. But it was a summer job, right? It was great.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think all of us have that first summer job, whether it's working retail. For me, I worked at a little snow cone shack. Those are fun.
Yeah, you learn how to work hard, right?
Yeah. All right. Second question. You're at the bar. What is your go-to order?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before the recording started, but I am being from New England and living here the last few years, I'm definitely a New England hazy IPA drinker. So, but there's a big but there. But if I'm traveling outside of New England, I don't order hazy IPAs outside of New England because I don't think they get them right. Sorry to all the other breweries out there. I'm probably there's a blanket stereotyping that's probably not accurate, but but that's what I'll order around here for sure.
I like hazy IPAs. When the first IPA I ever had was one of those super bitter IPAs, and I'm like, oh, I'll never get into this. And then the first time someone said, "Here, try a hazy IPA," I was like, oh, I can do this.
I could go on. We have a lot of breweries up here in Portland, Maine, where I'm located, and it's definitely taken over up here. That's for sure.
Nice. So obviously, like everybody in the insurance industry, we all grew up wanting to be in insurance, but I know that's probably not the case for you. What did you want to be growing up?
When I got out of school, I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. I was an English major. And I honestly, I didn't ever really know what I wanted to do. It took me a while. At one point I thought I wanted to be a journalist. And I think that's probably why I was an English major. And then I figured out really quickly that, well, I didn't want to teach, right? And I didn't want to be a journalist. So I kind of fell into technology after college. I had several temp jobs where I was just doing various technical things at a company called the Massachusetts Behavioral Health Partnership, which was a division of Value Options. It was basically a private entity that managed a portion of the Medicaid fund for the state of Massachusetts. But I was doing a lot of technical things, and one of the people there was like, "Hey, you're really good at this. You should consider maybe becoming a developer." And my wife pushed me to do that as well. So I went back to school not long after having my first job. And I really credit her too for pushing me to be a software engineer. And so I went back to school to become a software engineer. And I kind of wound up staying in insurance. One of my first big software jobs was at a big Fortune 500 insurance company. So I wound up learning that business through software engineering. Um, but what I want to be, like, what did I want to be when I grow up? To this day, I still don't know. Now I figured, hey, I get to go work for a startup and at least go work on something that could definitely make an impact in the industry and potentially even like make benefits accessible to more people. I think, look at like a lot of what like the company Noyo is about. It's that core mission and that belief in trying to help people through technology. I would say like that's what's become what I want to be when I grow up, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, I never wanted to be a journalist because I hate writing. Um,
Yeah,
and and thanks to software engineers, we have Chat GPT, which writes most of my copy.
it's crazy. It's crazy. It is we are at the cusp of like another major technological revolution. I think everybody's starting to recognize that now, obviously, right? Like
Yeah, and
it
it's
really is. It's just and it's accelerating so fast.
oh my goodness, it just it's crazy to watch.
Yeah.
All right, podcast or playlist, and if which one, what are you listening to?
Oh, okay. Well, both. I like both. So my Zen time is, I'm a suburbanite. So I like actually throwing on podcasts and mowing the lawn. So most recently, but I also like playlists. So I actually started to dive back into music that I used to listen to out of college. So I've been really the last 2 days been listening to a lot of Sleater-Kinney and a lot of Pixies. In fact, I was just listening to get kind of psyched up for this. I was listening to a live Pixies album before this. And then I do like, even though it's super popular, I do like Smartless a lot. I will say that I've really grown to enjoy that quite a bit, like a lot of other people. I think it's a really interesting look into the industry. And of course, those three dudes are hysterical. Um, the other one I just started listening to was Amy Poehler's new podcast. It's really good. It's improv comedy with her and friends, but the theme of it is I'm looking at the name right now. It's called Say More with Dr. Sheila. She plays a therapist, Dr. Sheila, and it's all the premise is that she's giving everyone really bad advice. And so it's all made up, like a lot of it, like they have the theme and then they make a lot of it up, like on the spot. I mean, I've only listened to a couple episodes, but it's hysterical if you like that.
I love good comedy, and I like it where it's I like Amy Poehler because she has that kind of dry humor that is stupid and smart at the same time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's like my wheelhouse too.
Great. We're gonna have a fun time today, drinking beer, talking about technology, and maybe some comedy.
Yeah, it'd be good. I'm game.
All right, Daryl, Director, Customer Solutions. For those who are listening, what is Noyo?
Yeah, so Noyo is a benefits technology company, and we have a platform that right now is trying to solve a really particular problem in our collective industry, which today is trying to connect benefits enrollment platforms to carriers. So you think about when most people, let's say, I don't know, most people, if they're working for an employer, offer up, you probably interact with your benefits a few times during the year, but the biggest time that everybody thinks about is open enrollment. So that's the best example that I can give, right? So today, and that's a lot of that's facilitated online today. Like a lot of platforms support that. Your employer may have one, they're probably paying for one. And when you go to select your benefits every year, you're picking off like your medical, your dental, any other ancillary kind of benefits that you want to elect or that they give you, or if you have options, you're kind of selecting those options. And then you're kind of going like this, putting it in a ball and shooting it, right? Like you're pushing submit, hoping that it all gets to those carriers. But behind the scenes, what that's really doing is creating a series of files, maybe even forms, like automatically, and shipping those off to the carriers using really outdated technology. And it creates problems. Like I literally had a problem this year, like with my own enrollment, right? Like I didn't know if it actually all went through. I got some kind of weird message back from the platform, right? And so like that could cause like missed coverages. Like, did you get, you get your like your card, your medical card or your dental card sent to you? Like maybe you don't get that. Maybe you don't get your kids covered. Maybe like there are all sorts of challenges. So the platform uses a technology called API, which a lot of people are now starting to become more familiar with. It's the technology that powers the internet. It stands for
Right.
Application Programming Interface. But basically what Noyo is, part of what Noyo is a platform that using API connects those enrollment platforms to the carriers in real time. And if you think about like, I don't know, I guess maybe like Amazon is a really good example, right? They use APIs to connect everything. Like, so from the mobile app and your Amazon app to Amazon's fulfillment center, that's all connected via API, right? So when you push an order, make an order, you're informed. Everyone has grown to be informed about what that experience is, right? Like, when it's coming, how much it costs, like you get updates as to like where it is in the fulfillment cycle. Noyo is really aiming to do that for benefits, right? And so the other part of what Noyo is a series of tools that allows platforms and the people that run platforms and brokers and employers be able to have that experience around benefits. Now, benefits is a broad category, right? Like, so right now, Noyo is a startup that actually just celebrated its 6-year anniversary, which is pretty cool. But we're primarily focused now on like enrollment. Now, the hope is that we start to expand our reach across the benefits ecosystem to connect all sorts of different kinds of benefits that people are starting to interact with today and for use cases beyond enrollment. So right now, that's our core focus because we believe if we get that right, the ecosystem will start to expand. I hope that makes sense, but that's
No,
the core of what we do.
that makes great sense. And I think for a lot of people, I don't think they understand what that looks like behind the scenes because it's so quick. Whereas, as you and I were talking before we started recording, like where I'm at, we still have carriers that and employers who are still using a very paper function, a very
Yeah.
data heavy, data entry heavy process. I remember when I first started in insurance and I sold my first group, and it was a carrier that I won't name, but it's a certain shade of blue. And
Yeah.
and so we go enroll in the group, about 70 employees, and they're like, oh, we don't have any technology, we've just been doing paper applications and that's what we want to do. I'm like, okay, well, let's everybody fill out paper applications. We take that, and then I have to go give that to my account manager who manually puts that into an Excel spreadsheet and then sends that to the carrier, and hope that they get all of that right. Or the other option was she could have manually entered all of that data into the carrier portal and hope that they got it right.
Yep.
It, and it's so time consuming. There's so many opportunities for errors of just putting in the wrong number, wrong letter, or wrong selection. It's horrible.
Yeah, I think for brokers, right? Like I've never been one, but I've worked with some. Like or if you think about it, in any experience that you have today, even if it's like interacting with your local government, right? Like we all now have grown to expect everything to just work and to be online and to be easily available and to like work through several channels and mediums, like not paper forms. Like what was I on the other day? Like a really good example of like just the experience where like they're getting so easy. Oh, I can't remember the name of the tech, but they integrated with the Google app. It's not DoorDash, but it's a point of sale service that a lot of restaurants have. I have to go look up the name. I don't remember the name of it, but like you can order online like through the Google app. It'll inform you where your meal is, and it remembered like the things you've ordered the most often already from that place. And it takes 1 minute. It's integrated with Google Pay. It sound like a freaking Google commercial right now, right? But like it's integrated with Google Pay. I don't have to get out my credit card. It knows me. I authenticate it. Like, I've ordered a burrito in 1 minute. Like, I think benefits needs to be that way. Like in the process that you talked about for brokers or getting quotes or like uploading census, like all like I know probably the most overused phrase was like digital transformation a few years ago, right?
Right.
But that's what we're talking about, right? That like it's 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 getting rid of all of those kinds of processes and making them way simpler where they're a second thought when it comes to technology. So you can go focus on doing other things as a broker. Like you can go actually go sell more, right? Which is what you're probably charged with doing, right? So I look at like the core of like part of what we're trying to do is to become that kind of experience, or I should say enable those kinds of experiences, right? Where anybody wants to go do that. Um, that's really the goal of what that's all about, is to get rid of all of that so you can just be like, oh, I gotta do it. Maybe you could do it by voice, like submit this quote, blah, 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 right? Like, and with APIs, you could do that.
So
Like,
I know, yeah. So I know Noyo is trying to solve, or make frictionless online benefits, but where is the friction still existing?
well, and if you think about, now we're gonna get like insurance nerdy, I suppose, but like all across, like Noyo's focused on group insurance, so I should say that too, right? But these friction points probably are less, but with individual insurance, they're still there. But with group, if you think about like the life cycle of how something gets sold to where a claim comes in, I still think there's tons of friction everywhere. I mean, you talked about part of it. There's friction in quoting. I know PerfectQuote is trying to work on a bunch of that to make that easier. I've seen some of that, and I think it's excellent. Um, there's definitely there's a lot of friction today in after something gets sold and a broker wants to submit that application to the carrier to actually like get the rates, and after they get the quote and they get everything bound, and like that whole process of actually selling a case, I feel like there's a lot of friction, and every carrier does it slightly different. So I feel like there's a lot of friction in that process. I think from a member experience, I think there's still a lot of friction in the claims experience. I feel like that's way too hard, right? Like I've had to file. I decided I can't. We don't want to name names. I decided to go out of network to file a claim for a carrier that I have for a service, and because it was actually a pretty decent rate to obtain the service that I wanted. And so I paid for it. And then I was like, oh, I'll just submit the claim after the fact. Like for you and me, like you and I know how to go do that. Like we could go figure that out. I argue that the Jane off the street, like they don't know how to do that. They don't even know what the heck out of network means, right? Like half of the time. So like figuring and like my of course my claim got denied because I didn't have the right information in it. And then I had to call and I had to figure out why. And because the reporter that oh sorry, the letter in the mail I got back, right, was horrible and didn't explain what was wrong. And we're talking like $150, right? But still, like it was $150. I wanted to get paid for it. I have the benefit. I'm paying for it. And it was like, okay, all right, now I got to call. And then they said, well, the easiest thing that you can do is probably just submit the claim again online. Well, at least I could submit it online. So, okay, I'll go do it again. And I just had to make sure I had like better screenshots of the email that I got for the service, right? Like, but again, now we're talking something that should have taken minutes, like literally should have been a layup. It was really hard to figure out how to go do that and then how to correct it. So I feel like the member experience, there's a huge opportunity in insurance right now. Um, I could go on, but those are the big
No,
things
like
on the
yeah,
mind.
that right there. I mean, to your point, like if being that we're in the industry, we have a little bit better understanding, but most everybody else doesn't. Like I was invited to go speak at a community college recently to a bunch of upcoming graduating
Cool.
seniors
Yeah.
just to do a benefits 101. Like, hey, you, you're getting ready to go out in the workforce and you're going to be offered benefits. Here's what these things mean. And it's just, it surprises me. And I think it's because I'm in insurance now that like, why don't you know these things? But I also grew up the son of a broker. So I kind of always knew these things.
But you have a little bit of advantage, right? Like
Yeah.
my kids are in college now, and um, they've had to access healthcare services at school. Um, and we armed them with their card, or our card, I should say, for their coverage, right? And we've been always been going with them to the doctor since they were really little, but they have very little working knowledge of the system and like what to do with that card once they're there, like because they're 18 and above now, right? So they're access like the community college, they're accessing services for the first time, and it's completely overwhelming to them. Like because we would handle all that like most parents, right? I think that's very true, right? But like they have no exposure other than being a consumer to this world, and it's all really like it's so daunting. I feel like there's such opportunity, especially through technology, but there's such opportunity to make all of these experiences like the best ones that we're used to working with today. I mean, I still look at it like I still get so frustrated when like a company, I'm like, wait, this isn't great on mobile yet? Like, how is that possible? Right? And I think insurance now is a laggard in the industry when it comes to these things. And I say that, of course, we're stereotyping, but like I believe that to be true. And I think they're finally starting to catch up. Like carriers are really starting to understand that anytime HR people or members interact with them, like that experience can make an impact. Like if they have a negative one, you bet that they're calling up their HR rep and saying like, "Hey, I just tried to like file a claim for blah this and it was horrible." And that's going to stick in the HR person's mind, and if they're a decision maker, they're not going to renew.
Oh,
Um,
been there, done that many times where it's like, I will, put a program in place with an employer and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. And sure enough, like they get sold on it because it's like, oh, this is great. We're going to save all this money. We're going to have all these great outcomes. But it's a change from what they've been used to. And then within 30 days, it's always has to be like the CEO's wife that the issue happens to, is what it feels like.
oh
And,
yeah,
and it's like, well, I can't get my medications or I can't do this and I got to do all these things. And like they're calling, the HR director who's then calling me like, what did you do to us? And I'm like, I didn't do anything. This is the carrier's issue because they don't have the tools behind the scenes to support what we're trying to do.
yeah.
And so, I mean, with all of that being said, where do we go? Where does Noyo going with what y'all are trying to accomplish to help build this a better ecosystem within the benefit space?
Yeah. I mean, so where we're going, right, is like I said, it was like first it's enrollment. So it's all the platforms and it's all the use cases that encompass enrollment. And it's all the major carriers. So we're trying to build this like compounding network effect where if you join the network, you get the benefits to connect with all the other players on the other side. So there's like a obvious cost benefit to doing that, right? Like you connect instead of building individual connections with each other, which can take a while and is really expensive, you can connect to us and you get this like compounding network effect. So right now we're really focused on, like I said, enrollment, supporting all of that, but building the network. So I think that's the big thing for us now is to really get that like compounding network effect. And then next it is, yeah, I believe it's building the ecosystem to other things beyond enrollment. I think TBD, where that winds up. The other big thing for Noyo that we're working on is experiences that help you manage that experience as a platform or a carrier. We just released a whole new, not to be like a Noyo commercial, but we just released a whole new platform. It's actually web-based, called the Command Center, where you can go look at all of your enrollment activity as a platform today across groups. So if like you have troubles with any enrollment, we notify you of what those are. We recommend steps to rectify them. So we're trying to create this like intermediate layer that really helps like platforms solve problems. So those are the big things that we're headed for in the near term. That's what's next for us.
Well, fantastic. That sounds exciting. And I think as a broker, the more that our vendors on the technology side, whether it's enrollment or the carriers, get better at being connected, that makes what we put in front of our clients seem so much more seamless.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be the wave of the future, and the brokers, employers, they're all going to want to do business where they can focus on their core things they're trying to solve and not the infrastructure and not problems. Like all of this needs to be seamless behind the scenes. Like I order my burrito, I'm informed where my burrito is, and I know when to go get it, and I go get it, and it has my name on it, and I walk out, and it's super easy, right? Like it has to be that.
Yeah. We need to Chipotle-tize the benefits industry.
We could.
Well, Daryl, how can our listeners learn more about Noyo? And if they wanted to connect with you, how can they do that?
That's a great question. You can go out to noyo.com on your favorite browsing device, whatever that happens to be. You can reach out and contact us there. If anybody wants to talk to me directly, there are several different ways. I'm out on, I can't believe I'm going to say X out loud. Isn't that so frustrating? But I am out on the thing formerly known as Twitter, at Daryl Hemeon. But if you want to really connect with me and send me a note about benefits frustrations or anything we've talked about, you can just drop me an email at daryl@noyo.com. NOYO.
Perfect. Well, Daryl, I appreciate your time today and sitting and having a pint and some great questions and conversations.
Thanks, man. Kevin, it was nice to meet you. I appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for listening to the P's and Q's podcast by PerfectQuote. If you would like more information about PerfectQuote, check out perfectquote.io or send an email to sales@perfectquote.io. And if you haven't subscribed to the P's and Q's podcast by PerfectQuote, we're on all the major streaming platforms as well as on YouTube. And we'll see you next time for some more pints and questions.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.